I'm Chef Lynn, and welcome to the Flavor Secrets Kitchen. Let me also first welcome my guest, Mrs. Talbot Payne. Thanks for coming, Talbot. I really appreciate your help today. The menu today is designed for Talbot's family. She has a husband who's a well-known pizza lover and two boys who are at college. So I thought it would be fun for them to all learn how easy it is, how tasty it is, and how inexpensive it is to make pizza yourself at home. And this is a great dish at college. There are make-ahead elements. If you don't have an oven, you can grill it, and I'm going to show you all those things today. So, you ready to get started, Talbot?
Yes, yes.
Okay, first we have to pour the warm water into the mixing bowl. Okay, so Talbot has a cup and a half of warm water, and she's just pouring it into the mixing bowl. And I'll take that from you, and then you're just going to take the dry yeast and sprinkle it on top of the mixing bowl. Okay, this is
sprinkle it on top of the water.
Sprinkle it right on top of the water. Okay, good. Well done. The next little bowl, the red bowl, this is one package of yeast, okay? The red bowl then contains 2 tablespoons of regular white sugar, and we're also going to sprinkle that over the water. And you don't have to be so careful about it. You can just kind of do it quickly, and then move the bowl around just a little bit to get the little pieces of dried yeast that are on the sides of the bowl all in there. Okay, so the reason that we added the sugar is that the sugar is food for the yeast. It's not really that we want to have sweet dough. We just want to proof the yeast, let it sit for a minute in the warm water so that we know whether it's alive. So actually, take one step back. The first thing you should do is look at the date on your yeast. See the date right here at the top? September 17th, 2012. Okay. So this should be just fine if you don't have time to do the proofing step, but it's always nice to know for sure that your yeast is alive so you don't make your pizza dough and find out, oh my gosh, it didn't rise and it doesn't taste as good. Let me set this right back here. Okay, so now we have to just wait a minute, and when that starts to work, when the yeast starts to eat the sugar, then we'll see a little bit of bubbling on the top of the surface, and we'll show you when that happens. In the meantime, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about these ingredients. Now, if you're an Italian baker in Naples, Italy, for example, you have to follow rules for your pizza pie. And one thing you would do is you would always use fresh yeast. So I have some fresh yeast out here just to show you what it's like. It comes in a package like this, and it's a cake, and it's kind of crumbly looking. You can see it a little bit there. It's really hard to find, and so that's why I'm showing you how to make it with the dry yeast, because I'm just telling you, you probably won't be able to find the fresh yeast.
Would this be in the refrigerator section at the grocery store? Or?
Yeah, that's a good question. It would be in the dairy section if you can find it, but a lot of the small grocers especially don't stock it because its shelf life is really short. So yeast is going to get mold on it really quickly. It's yeast after all. So you look in the dairy section for it, or ask your grocer if he can order it for you if you want to use fresh yeast. It will have a little bit of a different taste. Okay, the next thing our little Italian baker would need is a special kind of Italian flour, and it's called 00 or 00 flour. Again, it's not real readily available, so you can look at your market and see if you can find it if you want to make authentic pizza. But if you don't, I can tell you a much easier way to do it. So now we can look back at our yeast a little bit and see that it's starting to bubble just a little bit, so our yeast is okay. We've got kind of like a little film on the top. Sometimes you'll see almost like a shot of electricity going through your water, and you know that it's ready. And while we're talking about that too, can you stick your finger in there and kind of tell me how warm the water is?
It's like room temperature.
Yeah, okay.
A little
that's
warmer,
just
maybe.
because it sat out here a little bit, but it should be a little bit warmer than room temperature. When I'm getting the water for a yeast bread or a yeast dough like pizza is, I'll hold my finger under the tap so that it doesn't get too hot, because hot water can kill your yeast, and you don't want that to happen either. Okay, so we can see that the water is starting to move a little bit, and it kind of sparkles, and it's starting to foam just a little bit, so we know the yeast is okay. So now we can go ahead and put our flour in. I was talking about the Italian 00 flour. If you don't have that, you can simulate it by using a combination of cake flour and AP, or all-purpose flour. And that's what you've got in your next 2 bowls there. In the red bowl, you've got cake flour. And remember, cake flour is the one that you find in the baking section, but it's in a box, not a bag.
Okay.
So I think the local brand that you usually see around here is a red box, and it's Swans. But you'll, as I said, you'll find it in a box, not a bag, and that's pretty much, and it'll say cake flour on the front of it. Cake flour is the starchiest kind of flour, so it's great for making gravies or things that you want to be soft, okay? So we're gonna add that to, we have a half a cup of cake flour here, and you can go ahead and, oh, there, see that?
Oh, yeah,
those
look.
little spurts? They're like little, they're jumping up, little spurts of, how would you describe that? Like, it's almost like a tiny little geyser inside there, a teeny tiny one. Okay, so go ahead and put the cake flour in now.
But do I put in slowly?
No,
Like,
you can just dump it in.
The whole thing?
No big deal. Right, we don't have to worry about mixing that in first. And then we'll put 3 cups, we had a half a cup, remember, of cake flour, and now we'll put 3 cups of all-purpose flour in there. And what we've done is we've made, go ahead, just dump it in.
all at the same time?
Yep. We've made our overall flour combination a little bit starchier. Okay, and that's all the ingredients for the pizza, with the exception of some salt. And your last little red cup over there has a little bit of salt in it. You can put a half tablespoon to a tablespoon of salt, or even a little more. But the function of the salt is to kill the yeast. So I was about ready to grab your hand there. Don't put that in yet. We want to start mixing this up first, and then we'll add the salt last. Okay, so this is a dough hook. If you don't have, I expected you would say, if you don't have a mixer, we need to put some equipment, some kitchen equipment on Talbot's Christmas list.
Yes, yes. Honey,
Okay.
you got that?
So since you don't have one, I'll put this together. And all you do is set this in here and then turn it, and that locks the bowl down. And I also just pushed the dough hook on and turned it to lock the dough hook down. And then we'll put it on here and turn it on. And I'm starting it slowly so that flour won't fly all over the kitchen, because I don't like to dust. Another tip too is you can take some plastic wrap if you want to start it faster and you expect flour to be rolling out of the bowl, flying out of the bowl. You can take some plastic wrap and put a piece from here to here. It contains the, some people use a kitchen towel, and they both contain the dust, but with the plastic wrap you can see through it, so you can still see what you're doing. Okay, so this is mixing up, and now we want to just let it go faster and faster. And pretty soon, see how the faster you let it go, the more flour starts to come out. But I want it to happen quickly, so I've turned it up a little bit. I'll turn it down just a little bit so we don't get flour all over the place. And it's starting to stick together, okay? And it's starting to form a ball of dough. Now back to the, ooh, we forgot to put the salt in. All right, there goes the salt. Okay, so the salt's in now, and there's still plenty of time for that to mix up. That's no problem. And can you see how it's starting to make a ball of dough there?
Yeah.
If I were making this normally, I would let that go for about 10 minutes. I would really let that dough hook beat that really well, okay? In Italy, our little Italian baker would have to let that mix in a bigger professional machine for 30 minutes. Okay, there are all these rules.
Now,
Today,
why the hook, though? Why,
Okay,
instead of like a regular mixing, why does the hook need it more?
That's
or?
a good question, because if you use a regular mixer, it won't form it into the dough. What the dough hook does is it moves around in a circular motion, sort of like this, and it forms the dough into a ball.
Oh, wow.
And then, you know, you can use gloves if you want to touch your food, but with baking, as you know, you've told me you're more of a baker than a cook. You have to kind of get your hands in there so that you can feel the dough and you know what's going on. So I want to take this off the dough hook, and my dough's a little bit sticky. It's just like with, have you made bread before?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. How did it turn out?
In a bread machine.
Oh, no.
Sorry.
Okay, so it can be different on a different day. If there's a lot of moisture in the air, for example, you'll need more flour. So I just happen to have some flour. It used to be down there, obviously, because that's where I'm looking. And see how the dough is sticking to my fingers? So I can put some flour on my fingers and then handle it a little bit better. There you go. We don't need to add, I want to add as little flour as possible, because if you put too much flour in there, your dough will be too stiff. Set this back here. Let me take just a second and move this mixer out of the way. Now, as I wanted to mention to you too, if you're thinking about buying a mixer like this, there are basically 2 kinds. So since you might be thinking about buying a mixer, let me tell you about the 2 kinds. see how this arm, and it has to do with this arm. See how this arm goes up and down?
Yes.
If I were to buy this today, I would buy the professional model, not the one with the arm that goes up and down. With this one, you put the bowl down here and you bring the arm to the bowl. With the other kind, the arm is stationary and you bring the bowl up to it.
Oh.
So did you see when this was beating the dough, I had to hold
like
this
this,
down
yeah.
and it was going like that. So if you've got a really big batch of cookies or anything like that, you're going to have to hang on to this arm and you can't walk away or this will walk right off the counter. And don't ask me how I know that. So you have to be careful with that. And if you're thinking of buying one, I would, as I said, I would recommend a stationary arm. We're probably going to end up with flour all over the place. It'll look like we had a food fight or something. I'm just going to move this back here. Okay, now put some flour on your bench. This is called a bench or the counter. And you can put, you know, a little bit like that. And then what you want to do now is knead that dough just a little bit. Do you know what kneading is?
Mushing it around a little bit.
Mushing it around a little bit? Okay, let me show you how to do it then. All right, what you want to do to yeed is to knead, not yeed. I don't know how to yeed. I do know how to knead. All right, so I'm going to pull it with my fingers and then push it with the palms of my hands. And you don't have to pull and push, pull and push. And then when it gets out so it looks like a calzone, by the way, you can use the same dough to make calzone. Just instead of covering the whole thing with toppings, you would cover half of it and fold it over and then pinch it together. Okay, so now I'm going the other way.
Now, are you trying not to get air in it when you do this? Kind of like when you do clay or pottery or something?
Clay or pottery? No, it doesn't. You don't have to worry about the air at this point because this will sit for a while. Which brings me to the dough I have over here. This dough was made about 3 hours ago and it's been sitting. Now you don't have to let your dough rise for a long time, but if you do, it will develop more flavor and it'll be more tasty, okay? But what you do have to do is, you want to do this for a little bit. You can just do it kind of quickly. I would knead this normally another 5 minutes or so. And if you were that little Italian baker in Naples, it would have to be kneaded longer.
Is that just to mix it all in? Is that just...
Yeah, it's just kind of to develop the gluten too. There are strands of gluten in here that give the bread, this is basically bread, right? That give the bread its texture and they're tightening up. In fact, that's why I was bringing, well, first of all, let me tell you this. This size dough, so we had 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast or 1 package of yeast, that's the same. We had 1 1/2 cups of warm water, 2 tablespoons of sugar. Then we added a 1/2 cup of bread flour and 3 cups of AP flour, and then we threw some salt on the top, about a tablespoon. That will make 3 10-inch pizzas. So now what I want to do is use my pastry cutter to try and end up with 3 pieces about the same size. And at this point, because it will rise a little while, you can take a little bit off one and put on the other if you want to. And then get them into some nice small circles or balls of dough, okay? And set them aside, okay? Now, if you have a pastry brush, or I usually just dip my fingers in the oil and just cover this just a little bit. We don't want a skin to form on it. So pastry brush isn't, it's a little messier to use your fingers, but it works a little better to get it around. And then I'm just gonna let that sit there and rise for about 2 hours to develop the flavor. Then I'm gonna punch it down and leave it another hour or so. So this is great because it's make ahead. You can make that, go to the grocery store, take your bath, clean up, and then come back, and it makes a great pizza party, you know, give everybody a ball of dough and off you go. They can make exactly what they want. You can have your toppings set out and then everybody can please themselves and make exactly the pizza that they want. So here, you make a ball of dough. And this, as you can see, feels kind of stiff, doesn't it? Okay, now I want you to, when you're finished there.
Now, why do you have to cut the dough?
Pieces.
Because it would just string apart if you didn't cut it?
Well, I could pinch it off too.
Okay.
Sure. Either way, that's a good question. Okay, now we don't want to put them too close because look at this dough.
Oh, wow.
Has been sitting there for 3 hours and look how big it got. Okay, normally I wouldn't leave it there for 3 hours, but someone was late today. It wasn't Talbot. All right, so we're going to set those so that they have room to rise. Put a little bit of oil on them so that they won't develop a skin. And then if you want to, you can also cover them with some plastic wrap, but the oil will keep it nice, so we don't have to worry about that. Okay, now grab one of these pieces of dough. Here, I can get this out of your way.
Oh my.
What's the difference?
It's really light.
It's really light and soft
Yeah.
and kind of spongy. That's because the gluten has relaxed.
Do you want me to take it out?
Yeah, take it out. We'll put just a tiny little bit of flour on our bench here. Can you get it all out? Yeah, it kind of sticks together. Okay, now you can work with it, and this is when you want to start making your pizza pie, okay? And we don't want to work with it, we don't want to develop this anymore because the difference is really remarkable, isn't it? This is very light and soft and pliable. This is not, because the glutens, when you work them, they kind of get like rigor mortis and they stiffen up. And so you've got, I said that you didn't have to let your dough sit for several hours to develop flavor, but you do have to let it relax in between working with it. So it's going to take about 20 minutes for it to relax. Okay, so your dough you're going to make on this paddle. And I'll take just a second here and turn my grill on because this takes about 5 or 10 minutes to heat up. Let me show you how to grill pizza too. So for yours, we're going to put this on a pizza paddle, okay, because we're going to cook this in a very hot oven on a pizza stone, okay?
Now, do you need to have a pizza stone?
No, you don't have to have a pizza stone. There are other ways you can do this, but I want to show you both ways. So if you do cook it on a pizza stone, then it'll be crispier, okay? You'll get a really nice crispy crust. And this is what a pizza stone looks like. I can just set these over here. They do get kind of marred up after a while and don't look so great, but you can use these for making cookies, for pizza, for making any kind of bread. But to get it on the hot stone, you need the paddle to move it there. Okay? And also note that it takes about 45 minutes for a pizza stone to really heat up. And you want to put it on the hot stone because it sort of like sears it. It's the same idea as we've talked about before about caramelizing onions and searing meat, etc., etc. So we want this to be rip-roaring hot. So I'm going to put that in a 425-degree oven. I've already got another one hot already over there in the oven because I have two. And then, just as an aside, I leave these in my oven all the time. And the reason is because it helps me to simulate a professional oven by having the pizza stone in there. A professional oven has what's called a hearth, and that's the bottom of the oven is like this. It's made out of stone. Okay, so and it also helps to keep the oven at an even temperature to stay hot. You know, when you're putting cookies in and out. For example, you're opening the door and letting heat out. So the stone will help to keep the heat even. Okay, now we've let that sit there a little bit. And when you have your paddle, you can see I just used this to make another pizza, which we'll show you in a minute. So you can see there's already flour on it. And I just left it on there because I want the flour to be really in all the grooves of this pizza paddle. So I don't want my pizza to stick, okay? So first thing we're gonna do is start making this. Maybe if you could work kind of over here, I'll take the other one and work here. Hopefully we'll have enough room. And I'll show you how to form the ball, or how to form the pizza pie. So there are several ways you can do it. If you have a round stainless steel bowl, for example, it's really round on the bottom, you can set this on top and just sort of work it down the sides and then pull on it, and it will help you to make it into a circle as you start to do that. But the first thing I want to do is just kind of pull it out, and I'm trying to be very careful of two things. One is that I you put that down like it was a hot potato. Oh, I'm doing something wrong. You're not doing anything
I'm just
wrong.
following you.
Okay, so I'm trying to keep the edges thicker because I want the crust on the end, the crust on the outside of it, I mean, not the ends, to hold the sauce inside. So I want to always push out from the middle. My son used to be a professional pizza maker, and he always used to do it like this and just kind of push it all out, and he would get down like this and beat the whole thing out. But and his pizzas were actually gorgeous. So all I'm trying to do is not to have this be too thin, but realize that when we pop this in a hot oven, it's going to pop up a little bit. So it can be pretty thin in the middle. But what I'm trying to do is just kind of stretch it out. And you can stretch it out this way too, or this way too, and get it bigger, but keeping it thicker on the outsides. And then just keep working, working, working. And you can push down with your fingers like this and push it out. You can use the heel of your hand. The only thing that doesn't work real well for this is a rolling pin, because
do you flip it over
we
at
don't
all?
want to.
Or do you always do the same side?
No, because see how the back starts to look?
Okay, so you stick to the same. Okay.
That's a good question though. I want to keep the pretty side up. Okay? So I'm going to make this about 10 inches. This is a nice individual size for my family. It might be too big for your family, but my family really likes
Mine
pizza.
isn't going round, Lynn.
Okay, so how did that happen? Because I think you just want to not always go in one direction. And you can fix that by, see how I'm stretching?
Okay, yeah.
Just a little bit. It's getting a little bit thin there, but you can pinch it together if you need to.
Okay.
What we want to avoid is re-rolling it. We want to just work with this same piece. So if it's getting thin there, concentrate over here and just see how I was going around it to push it out.
So you weren't doing it from the middle.
That's a good question,
You're doing it at the edges.
I wasn't what? What did you say?
You're doing it more at the edges.
Yeah.
I was getting the middle too thin.
Yeah, okay. So I'm continuing to push the edges out. Okay, I want to make sure I have plenty of flour on here. And by the way, just before I put this in the oven, I'll put flour on the stone in the oven. Don't do that too far ahead because the flour will burn. Some people use cornmeal. I don't like to because the cornmeal always burns for me. So I don't do it anymore. Okay, so you are going to work yours. Once you have your shape, you're going to pick it up and put it on the flour on the paddle, and then put your toppings on
I've decided I'm going to do more
finished.
of a rectangle.
Okay.
It'll help.
Actually, you know, you can make your pizza any shape you want to. There's no reason a pizza has to be round. Remember what I was saying before, this would make a great calzone.
There you
because
go,
if you
right.
put your toppings like to here, and then fold this over and pinch it together, you've got a really nice calzone. Okay? So it doesn't matter what shape the pizza is, it will absolutely taste the same. And I'll still help you out here a little bit. Okay, so, and then to make your crust, you can kind of come around like this, pushing in with the sides if you'd like to. Okay, now I want to move these over here so I can bring your toppings over. So I'll just move these back here to rise a little bit. Where am I going to put them? I don't know. Over here. Just get them out of the way, right? We'll fix those later. I think there are quite a few people here who'd like to have some pizzas. There, your topping's good. Okay, well, we better keep this flour over here. So for Talbot's pizza, I've given her some chives. I've given her some smoked pepper, which you can buy in a jar. You can smoke yourself. There's a video on my YouTube channel about how to smoke peppers if you don't know how to do it. It's under Chef Lynn Miller on YouTube. She's got some diced chicken, and she's got some mixed cheeses here. You want to have a cheese that has good melting properties. So this is a mix of grated Fontina and cheddar. Okay, we'll leave our flour around here just in case we need a little more. You want to always just keep a little bit of flour under there so it doesn't stick to the counter and wreck your beautiful shape. Or you always want to have a little bit of flour available. Now see, I got like a bubble there, a little bit of a thin spot, so I'll just pinch it together and pat it down. Okay, so there's my pizza. Now I'm gonna go again around here to try to make sure that I have a nice crust on the end. And mine, I'm going to grill. Now, when you say grilled pizza, you can go ahead and put yours on here and start working on your toppings. Okay, good. And then reshape yours.
When I do the toppings, should I put, which ones do you put on first, or does it matter?
I would say put the cheese on last. You know, pizza kind of gets a bad rap for calories, but if you really think about it, this is no different than French bread. That's the kind of bread you can eat that has the least calories in it. It has no fat in it, neither does pizza dough. It's not the dough. It's all the cheese that you put on it. So put healthy things on it. Put vegetables. I love corn. Artichokes and chicken is one of my favorites. So you've got here also some barbecue sauce. I thought you might like to do a barbecue chicken.
So do you put that sauce on first?
You can put some of the sauce on first, or you can mix your chicken with it, whatever you'd like. So yeah, I think it's a good idea to put a little bit of sauce on first. You don't have to put any oil on there before you do. Just put the sauce around here, but don't get it up on the crust on the edge, because it might burn. We want to, and also we want to have a nice pretty golden crust on the outside. Okay, this pizza we're going to grill. So go ahead and work on your toppings.
This one? Okay.
And I'm going to come over here to the grill. The grill is hot now. And a little while ago, before I heated the grill, I took a rag and I wiped the grill with oil, just because I don't want my pizza to stick. Now, you're not going to get grill marks on the whole pizza. I mean, obviously, if I put the toppings on first, I can't flip the pizza and cook the crust all the way through. So what I'm going to do is just really cook the dough on the grill, okay? And I don't want it to flame up. I'm sorry that it flamed up, but I used this to grill a lot of vegetables yesterday, and so that's what that was. It was just a little bit of oil dripping down into the grill, but as long as it stops right away, it's okay. You want to keep your grill from flaming, because that's what's carcinogenous. Okay, so I'm just going to let it sit there until it cooks and it gets grill marks on it. And I've got this big spatula to use to get it off. If I want to, I can just kind of look under there to see if it's getting too brown or black or whatever. And I'm going to get some nice grill marks and some nice smoky taste by doing this. Then what I'll do is once this will solidify when it gets to 145 degrees, because that's when the proteins will coagulate, okay? No, yeah, coagulate. Okay, now I can see these bubbles coming up. Sometimes that happens with grilling. So I want to take a look down below, and it's still not too dark, so I can leave it sit there just a little bit longer. And as soon as I started to talk about, as soon as the proteins coagulate, then it's going to get stiff, and I'm going to be able to pick it up and move it. I can even pick it up with my fingers if I've got iron fingers. But I like this big spatula. I've had this for about 25 years, and this is only the second time I've found a use for it. But I think it's supposed to be
for pancakes?
It was built as a huge hamburger spatula about 25 years ago. But anyway, it's great for this purpose, for moving a piece of pizza about this size. So you can see it's starting to stiffen up, but I still need to let it sit there for a few minutes. Okay, so you're putting some chicken on. So far you've got a pretty healthy thing going on there, pretty healthy dish, I think. You've got some smoked peppers and some chicken. One thing you want to be careful about is not loading too many ingredients on. You're not at all. Okay. You're not even close, so that's fine. But we used to make pizzas that, you know, my husband used to make these pizzas that where the toppings were 3 inches high, and then you'd get over to the oven, and it was really difficult to get it off the paddle and into the oven. Okay, I wanted you to see this. See how I'm shaking this, and I'm making sure that my pizza will move, because if not, I need to lift this up and put some more flour under there before I get it too loaded up. That's another good use for this spatula. If you have trouble getting this from the paddle onto the stone in the oven, I'm lucky I didn't flip that off on the floor. If you have trouble with that, then this is a great tool to just help to slide it onto the other. Whoops, no, see, I'm talking to you and not watching my pizza, which burned. So watch your pizza and don't let that happen. Anyway, it's not a big deal. You got the idea, right? Let's turn on the fan here. And we'll have to start that one over. All right, so much for grilled pizza.
Should I put the chives on top of the cheese?
I put the chives on top of the cheese, yeah. And do you want onion on it or not? This is some sauteed red onion. Okay, you could use caramelized onion, any kind of vegetable that you'd like. And see how she's just putting a little bit of cheese?
Should I put more cheese?
No, I think it's good.
Okay.
This was my point I was trying to make about how it's the cheese that gives the pizza a bad name. And your chives are beautiful. And this pizza that I finished just before you came will show you how the chives will look when it's finished. Now, notice we put the pizza into the oven on a wooden paddle. We build it on a wooden paddle, because if you put it on some metal, it'll stick. However, this paddle is great for taking the pizza out of the oven. for sliding it underneath, okay? Because it's got such a thin, hard edge here that it's easy for getting under. And this particular pizza that I made earlier is called Dinette. And this combination comes from southern Germany. And I have to get my recipe out here so that I can tell you exactly how I made it. It's really delicious. First of all, I mixed together a half a cup of flour, 3/4 of a cup of sour cream, and then I threw in a pinch of salt and pepper and garlic powder. You don't have to use the garlic if you're allergic to it or you don't want to, but it makes breads taste really good. Then I mixed in an egg, and then I mixed in caramelized onion, about 2 onions, okay? You can cut them in rings, which is the traditional way to do it, or you can use leek, or you can use julienne onions, which is what I did. I just mixed that in with the wet mix. And then I topped it with bits of onion that I had already cooked and bits of chive. Okay, now when I took this out of the oven, this looked just a tiny little bit dry. So what I did is I took just a little pat of butter and I went around the edge. And see how nice and golden and perfect it looks now? That's how you do that. However, if you don't use clarified butter, if you use whole butter that has the milk solids in it, you're going to see a little white foam on there. And that's the milk solids, because when they get hot, they turn white. So all I did to take care of that is I took a little piece of kitchen towel and I blotted it. Okay? So there's your finished pizza. And that's pretty similar to what yours will look like after we bake it. So I hope the rest of you have a great day. We're going to be eating a lot of pizza around here. See, so I think it's something that you can do at home now, do you think?
Oh yeah, definitely. I do need a few toys though. I always kid Lynn that she has lots of toys in her kitchen.
I do have lots of toys in my kitchen, that's for sure. And hopefully your kids can make pizza at college too, and hopefully they can even grill it, but they'll be watching the grill instead of talking to everybody around them, hopefully, but it's not a big deal. If you burn it, you don't have a lot of expense in it, you can just make another one. Okay, I'm Chef Lynn, and this is the Flavor Secrets Kitchen. Enjoy. If you would like today's recipe, just email chef@flavorsecrets.com and request it. You can also review any episode by going to www.bloomfieldtwp.org. Click on Video on Demand on the right side of the screen, and then click on Flavor Secrets to choose your episode. Enjoy!